They were repairing Jesus' statue and realized something was hidden inside. When Gemma Ramirez, an experienced art restorer, was assigned to the restoration of a Jesus Christ statue, she braced herself for another ordinary day at work. As she approached the Spanish church, the Church of Santa Agueda, she had no idea that she was about to have a day unlike any other. Ramirez took a moment to remember her ancestors as she and her team made their way through the church aisles to the statue. She could almost feel time passing by as she imagined the intricately inscribed characteristics and the imposing presence of something sacred. But, before she could address her colleague, she was startled to see two candles go out as they passed by. Ramirez is no stranger to holy sites and artifacts. She's used to being in spiritual places and quiet grounds as an experienced art restorer who has worked on a variety of old artifacts. However, she had a strange feeling about this place. She just didn't know what it was. As her feet moved forward, her mind searched. The Cristo del Miserere statue of Jesus is an 18th-century wooden statue that was damaged a few years ago. These were said to be damages that could only be repaired by the art restoration company Ramirez works for in Madrid, Da Vinci Restauro. She looked at the statue and saw a work of art pleading for help. The old statue had seen better days. Ramirez and her colleague had their work cut out for them because they were rusted, cracked, and filthy. She took notes as her colleague assisted her. They described the specific areas of the statue, indicating their severity and the level of care required. She lost her grip as she flipped the statue over. She manages to balance the statue just in time, but her heart sinks. She examines each piece of wood's rough contours and fissures by turning the statue on its side. She sneezes as she removes the dust from the artwork. Her sneeze reverberates unearthly down the silent, dark hallway. Then she starts to remember. She can recall what makes this church unique and why the feeling is so unsettling. She's come here before. Her grandma had brought her here when she was younger. She had taken her to the service, but because Ramirez was sneezing, they both had to leave. Her eyes followed a huge crack on the statue's back as she thought back on her history. Her gaze was focused. Her coworker turned to look. She squeaked, "There's something inside." The prospect of a bug infestation made Ramirez shiver. As they frequently feed on decaying wood, it frequently occurs with wooden artifacts. However, when they both readied themselves to look inside, they discovered something else that neither of them had anticipated. They have two options: they can either open it or leave it sealed inside the statue, never to be found again. If they opened it, they could find something that could change the course of history. Are they neglecting anything that has to be recognized and understood if they leave it? It was up to them how history would turn out. As Ramirez removed the final piece of wood from the statue of Jesus Christ, her heart was beating rapidly. On tiptoes by her side, her coworker eagerly looked over her shoulder for a glimpse of the big surprise. They were incredibly curious about what they discovered. After all, it had been hundreds of years since anyone had touched this statue, until now. In order to uncover their hidden mystery, Ramirez, at last, raised the wooden frame. Wide-eyed and speechless, they both stood there as two worn, leather-like scrolls came into sight. Ramirez carefully inserted her hand to get a better look. What was it? Who might have penned these old scrolls, and why? She was soon going to learn. It is clear that whoever hid the scrolls inside the statue did so with the intention that they would withstand the effects of time. The scrolls were in readable condition and were made of vellum, a thin leather sheet that is renowned for its durability. On the other hand, they wouldn't have survived very long if the secret message had been written on paper. Ramirez was aware of the scrolls' age, but how long had they been kept secret? The scrolls had a yellowish tinge that had grown over many years, but Ramirez and her team's eyes widened in astonishment when they learned how old they actually were. The 18th century document surfaced as we were tearing down the cross-centered Christ. The two scrolls we've unearthed were presented by the sculptor, and the wood is hollow within," Ramirez said with delight. The scrolls, which were penned by former church chaplain Joaquin Minguez, date back to 1777. Minguez writes about the historical context and setting of the statue's creation. He identifies the sculptor as Manuel Ball and remarks about Spain's political and economic situation at the time. He also talks about his daily activities and the terrifying aspects of life at the time. As further information came to light, the two gathered together. A reference to King Carlos V, who ruled Spain from 1759 until 1780, is made in the secret scrolls, which also record the gruesome details of illnesses like typhoid fever that afflicted his time. Ramirez discovered a time capsule that provided her with an adventure of a lifetime. She was so stunned by the finding that she found it difficult to move the scrolls to another place to be archived without making duplicates to respect Minguez's desire. She put the objects back into the statue with her own letter attached. Ramirez added, he wanted to leave a memory of their experience in their time. She also generously followed suit.